Welcome to this second video on thematic teaching and language learning, where we're going to explore the 6Ts approach, as I said in my previous video. This is the work of two authors, Frederica Stoller and William Grabe. And in Schoology, you have the article, the chapter in a book that they wrote on this particular approach. I'm going to be using and borrowing from that chapter throughout this presentation, which is not very long, just 1 minute per each of the T's. And then I'm going to ask you to read and complement what I have explained here in the PowerPoint. So we start with the 6Ts approach. What does it mean? As we saw in the last video, the T's stand for theme, texts, topics, threads, tasks, and transitions. And as we said in the previous video, this is a way of doing content-based instruction, learning language through content, where the content is what drives the language and not the other way around. It's not like we teach the language first and then we teach the content, the history, the science, etc., but we incorporate things in a different way. How do we go about designing a thematic unit? We're going to do the design in the next video. In this video, we're going to look at the components of a thematic unit, which are the 6 T's. The first T has to do with the themes. A theme is something new that students are learning, and they are doing so in English. Typical themes could be the solar system, my neighborhood, or history makers. Some of these appear already in the syllabi that you are teaching or that your cooperating teacher is using. What are themes? They are central ideas that help us organize what we call a curriculum unit, right? This set of learning experiences that has a concrete outcome. Why do we choose them? Because they give the learners an opportunity to use the language purposefully, not just to learn the grammar. A theme gives us an opportunity for students to learn the language, learn something new through the language, and also learn about the language, right? In general, we use one theme per thematic unit, and the number of thematic units spread in the year, you just look at the syllabus, how many thematic units there are, and you decide how long each unit is going to be. The second one is the texts. Every thematic unit needs to provide input. When we talk about texts, we talk about any piece of language that holds together cohesively through meaning. So a picture could be a text. A video could be a video text. Of course, something written could be a text if it is entire, right? And not just a passage. And of course, text can also be audio text. They can be oral. That is why I say here, the text can be audio, they can be print, they can be digital, which are multimodal texts, where in the same text you have reading, you have a video, you have a picture, you can make a response to the text, and of course images. There are 3 dimensions for the texts that we are going to use in the classroom. One is what we call instructor compiled content resources. That is to say, the things that you select ahead of time when you're planning the thematic unit to start working. You have examples there, and you will find those examples in the course books that students use, right? That is something which has already been done for you, but you may want to create your own content resources. So if you, for example, can record tutorials, you can create worksheets, graphic representations of concepts, create bulletin boards with students if you have a space in the classroom. Then there are texts that emerge from students doing things with the language. For example, student free writes, recordings of discussions, the problem-solving activities, graphic representations. Students can also do library searches, create databases, or generate or use surveys and questionnaires. And you cannot forget that maybe a student knows somebody who could be a guest speaker. Or you can take the students to a museum, for example, or to a square or somewhere where the topic that they are analyzing is explored live. Those are external content resources. The next T is the topics. A theme, as we said, is general. Topics are subunits of contents. Look at the example. The theme is insects. Now, that could be a theme that works, for example, throughout primary school, from kindergarten to the 6th grade, and even into 7th, 8th, and 9th grade. One set of sample topics, you can say, okay, we're exploring insects. Let's look at insects which are helpful. Another subtopic, right? Another topic would be insects which are harmful, or insects which eat other insects, or insects which eat vegetation alone. That is one set. Another set could be just to talk about ants, bees, caterpillars. So topics help us complement students' interests. And for these, you will have to generate texts that tally with the students' interests. Say you have a unit on music. Music is the theme. Topic could be, I don't know, music that teenagers in a certain province listen to, okay? And the topics could be what kind of pop music, what kind of tropical music, what kind of rock and roll, etc. The next T is the threads. Now, threads are a little bit difficult to interpret because they are an abstract concept, but they're an important component of a thematic unit because they help us bring together everything in the thematic unit instead of having just one topic here, another topic there, another topic there. The threads and themes example that I'm showing you comes from the Grabe and Stoller article. And look at this, for example, the theme is civil rights. That is the unit. What thread links various things in civil rights? You could be exploring the civil rights movement in the United States in the 1960s. That could be one thing. And then compare it with civil rights movements in Uruguay, for example, knowing that Uruguay was the first country where in Latin America where women could vote, for example. The responsibility to uphold civil rights for citizens is what connects all the themes. Another one could be, why is Uruguay considered a very liberal country? And let's look at the civil rights we have now, right, that we didn't used to have, I don't know, 10, 20, 30 years ago. The same thing with the other. Now, what these threads provide is a natural way for us to link themes, right? But more importantly, they help us recycle, which is a key thing in a thematic unit. We need to recycle the vocabulary, the language that is emerging from the students and the one we are teaching, and also the theme, right? Because everything should focus on the thematic unit. Another thing that these threads help us recycle are the learning strategies that we teach students. For example, every time you read a text, read the title and try to predict what the text is about. That is a learning strategy. We do it throughout the unit. The next T has to do with how to do it, and that is tasks and activities. I'm using Jane Willis's classification of tasks. And just think about this. The important thing is that students should be doing something with the language that they have at their disposal, right? So you can pick and choose from this list of tasks. the task that helps the learners progress from one point to another. If you want to read more about task-based learning, I'm going to be uploading an introduction to one of my books where you have task-based learning step by step. Tasks and also activities. Activities are, for example, exercises to practice language. If you feel that students do not manage the language in a certain way, you can always, of course, create exercises. And last but not least, the last T is an important one, which you all know, and these are transitions. There are two kinds of transitions, transitions between topics and transitions between tasks. So far, you've been used to doing task transitions, right? Like, for example, look at these transitions. Interpret a graph depicting population trends. Then they create a new graph with data that they do with a classroom survey. Then they write an interpretation of the new graph. They create a computer version of that graph and then incorporate that graph into a little bulletin board display or a presentation, etc. So you can see students are accessing input and doing something with the input about themselves. The topical transitions are when we change emphasis, right? For example, from global population trends to trends in developing countries, to trends in developed countries, to trends in students' home countries, etc. Now, the important thing here is that topical transitions are made explicit to the students, because this is part of learning the content. I hope that you have understood and enjoyed listening to these 6 threads that constitute the basic components of a thematic unit. And I look forward to sharing more with you in our next video. Thank you.